Hello, my name is Allison Corman, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And the name of today's podcast is Where Does Your Stress Come From? And I find when people would come to me over the years with a problem, a lot of their stress had to do with the fact that the problem existed. They didn't expect to get sued. They didn't expect to lose their job. They didn't expect to have a problem with a relationship. They didn't expect to have a bad employee. And a lot of the stress comes from, this shouldn't be happening. Why is this happening? I can't believe this is happening. And even when people get to this place where they allow their feelings, they still resist the fact that it exists. So that's really one of the biggest ways to alleviate our stress, is to accept what is. And this can be extremely challenging. It doesn't mean you have to like what's happening, but to argue with what's happening is an unbearable stress. And I don't mean to say that this is simple, but it really is an unbelievable shift when you land where you actually are. Even if there's pain, even if there's disappointment, you're not arguing. When you argue something exists, it's like it spins. And I know I always bring this Longfellow quote up, but it always reminds me of the futility of resisting what is. For after all, the best thing one can do when it's raining is to let it rain. You would never go outside and argue with the fact that it's raining outside. You can't stop it. You can't change it. It's beyond us. And often situations when they're happening in our lives, it really is beyond us to stop in that moment. Yes, we could show up a certain way. We could try to problem solve it. But when you accept it, a lot of your stress will go away because you are not in resistance to what is. Another great source of stress is our expectations of how this moment will resolve, how this problem will resolve. We write a story that, okay, I can accept what's happening, but I'm going to do A, B, and C, and I'm going to solve my problem. And as you're in the problem and as you're trying to get a hold of what's happening, things often don't go as planned, especially when we're in a chaotic moment in our lives. We don't know the new job we're going to get. We don't know if we're going to meet anyone new. We can't quite see how things are going to work out, so we keep coming up with these ideas. But if we write a story that this is the way it's going to be, this is how I'm going to solve it, then there's your stress again. Because even though you accepted the problem, you'll create expectations about how it's going to be resolved. And in truth, all we could do is show up every day and do our best. Because there are so many factors I find when someone's trying to solve a problem, when you're trying to grow a business, when you're trying to get over something that's painful. So you can make a plan. It's very important to make a plan to move forward. But you just have to realize that this plan is just for the moment. And as things go forward, things will change. And I've seen people approach things different way. I've seen people get sued and be in horrendous lawsuits. And every day they let it eat them up inside. The fact that the lawsuit's happening, the fact that the day in court didn't go well, the fact that their plan's not working. And I've seen other people accept the situation and say, at some place in time, this thing's going to work out. And every time there's a plan, it doesn't work out, they make a new one. And you could see how people show up differently affects their level of stress. Because stress is a type of resistance to what's happening. And again, it's not realistic to say we're never going to be stressed. But if we learn to accept what's happening, make a plan for resolution, make a plan how you can move forward, but don't expect it to go a certain way. Just keep trying every day to do your best to get to the place you want to be. And another reason why people are so stressed is they're projecting when something bad happens that it could never get better. They have a challenging relationship with uncertainty. And I get it. People work so hard at their businesses, at their jobs. They devote so much time and then things happen. And it's really hard to see sometimes how we're going to get out of a mess that we're in. How we're going to help someone we love overcome a problem. How are we going to overcome our own problems? Because usually problems are solved minute by minute, day by day. Sometimes we can't even see things getting better. Sometimes there'll be an event and you'll get the new job. You'll meet the right person. But I find a lot of problems are solved very slowly. I've seen people live in stress for years, and then a problem will work out, and there was so much suffering that could have been avoided. And sometimes something doesn't work out, and we have to change gears. But we have to be careful not to project our problems into the future. Because what we're really doing, we're living with the stress from the future. We're living with the stress that it didn't work out when we have no idea. And again, that's why I always talk about the maybe practice, because maybe is the hope within the unknown. Maybe is hope without attachment. It's saying, I don't know what the future is going to be. I only know what today is. And I've made a plan and I'm doing my best, and it could work out one way or another. But I'm not going to give up this moment. I'm not going to give up trying. I'm not going to get myself sick for an outcome I can't predict. And that's how you cultivate the hope. And that's also how you cultivate the resilience. It's very hard to live in the moment believing that you're never going to solve your problem. It's very hard to live in the moment thinking everything is always going to be as tough as it is today. And yes, again, you have to accept your problems the way they are in the moment. But you don't, in this moment, have to accept defeat in the future. So if you're able to integrate these 3 ideas, you're going to have less stress in your daily life. The first, again, is acceptance. Is to think about, are you resisting what's happening? Write your problems down and see how it feels when you don't argue with the fact that they exist. And I know this could be tough for me, especially with my children. It's so hard sometimes to accept a problem that they have, or when someone you love is ill, or something you wanted so badly doesn't happen. But until we accept it, that stress is just going to be with us, because we can't land the anxiety and the worry and the pain. It's not that all your feelings are going to go away when you accept it, but at least you have some place to stand. It's very challenging when we don't have a place to stand, because we can't start looking at the problem logically. We can't start really making a plan with stability, with commitment. But when we accept it, we land in a place, we stand on our 2 feet, and we say, this is happening in my life. I don't like it. This is hard for me. This is challenging. You could say all those things. But when you accept it, you will find you have so much less stress. The second thing is expectations. Be careful not to write stories about how your problem needs to be resolved, when it's going to be resolved, if it's going to be resolved. Because then you're always going to be stressed, because as you're trying to get out of the hole, as you're trying to make things better, every time it doesn't go your way, you're going to feel stressed. It's much better to hold it loosely. It's much better to say, I'm going to make this plan and I'm going to try every day to solve this problem, knowing that it could take a long time. But I'm going to stay with it because I have goals for my life. I have dreams for my life. And it also allows you to kind of come back to the moment and appreciate what's happening. Because often when we have a problem, when we're really stressed, there's joy and love around us at the same time. And when we accept what's happening and we don't expect it to resolve a particular way, we could also still enjoy the life that we're living. And the last piece is, are you stressed because you're believing it'll never get better? Are you stressed because you're believing life can't be good again? And that's where you get into the maybe practice. That's when you get to hold the hope. That's when you get to work on your relationship with uncertainty. If you don't know what's going to happen next, that means life can change. And some of those possibilities you will like. You could just write maybe statements down. You could even just say, maybe everything will be okay. And then you realize, wow, I can't know what's not going to work out. I can't know how things are going to be. And for me, it always gives me more strength and resilience in the moment to keep working towards something new. And when we incorporate these things in our lives, we live with less stress. And I know when I'm less stressed, I'm more present. My heart is more open. I have more time for love, more time for laughter, more time to create more things, and ironically, more time to solve my problems. Because I am present, I am willing, and I am able. And the same thing will happen to you. Look at your acceptance, look at your expectations, and look at your projections of the future. As you start to work on this, your stress will lessen and you will attract solutions. You will come up with solutions and you will see over time that life does change and things can get better. And for all you know, maybe the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe or A Year Without Men, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you could subscribe and leave a comment.